بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. We said one of the defects of the tongue is to tell lies. Today there is a kind of remaining part from this discussion about cases where telling a lie might be permissible. بيان ما رخص فيه من الكذب or كذب. So on page 243 of volume 1 in Mahajjah al-Baydaa, there is a discussion about where there is rukhsa, there is permission for lie. Basically, it's good to know that before we go to the book, that in Islamic ethics, some of the actions are always good or bad. If you are familiar with some philosophical terms, so we say some actions have a complete cause for goodness or badness. Therefore, they never change. The late Sheikh Muzaffar mentions in his Usul al-Fiqh, for example, justice. Justice is always good. Injustice is always bad. Okay? So here we have illat tam, complete cause. Means whatever we need for goodness is in the action. Whatever we need for the badness in the action. We don't need to consider anything else. But sometimes action is part of the cause. We call it muqtadi. Okay? Like what? Like fire. Fire is muqtadi, means fire is a cause for burning. If you have fire and wood or paper, fire can burn. But it's not complete cause because it depends on other things. For example, if that thing is wet, fire cannot burn. Or if there is no oxygen, fire cannot burn. Okay? So, fire has the power to burn. But it's not the only thing. It's not the only factor. So it's not illat tam. Okay? So now when it comes to morality, so telling lies is not like justice or injustice. Telling lies is muqtadi, is like fire that can burn. But maybe something can come and override. Something can stop this to work. Yeah? Like when there is wetness or there is no oxygen, it can stop. So here we have things that if they are left to themselves, they have a moral, situation. If something can come and override, the moral judgment changes. So it's not arbitrary that sometimes telling a lie is good, sometimes is not. Is bad, sometimes is not bad, sometimes even maybe good, sometimes maybe necessary. Depends on other factors. And there are things which have no causation for morality. Means our mind, after analysis, find they are neutral. For example, walking, drinking, speaking, as such, they are neither good or bad. Yeah. Something has to be added to them to make them good or bad. So do you understand now the difference between three cases? When it comes to justice and injustice, they are complete cause. When it comes to telling lie or telling truth, they are muqtazi, means they are incomplete cause. If nothing overrides, nothing interferes, okay, they lead to certain judgment. Otherwise, it can be changed. When it comes to drinking, speaking, talking, walking, etc., it's neutral. Something has to be added to it. For example, if this is a speaking for helping someone, becomes good. If it is speaking to backbite, becomes bad. So it's neutral in itself. So you see, there is a clear way of evaluating actions. Someone who is not familiar says, "Oh, why? Sometimes something is good, sometimes it's relativism, or it's as if there is nothing, fixed." Say no. Everything is very carefully judged, but depending on the relation between action and the outcomes, we can, decide. So now we go to the book. Ghazali says, in al-Kidhb, in Arabic, we say Kidhb and also Kadhib. Both of them can mean the same thing. And some people like Sheikh Shomali say Kadhib, maybe it's more accurate. اعلم أن الكذب or كذب ليس حراما لعينه. Telling lie by itself is not haram. Now that you know the technical term, so we say it's not illat tamma, it's not the complete cause for prohibition. It is certainly harmful. It is certainly something that is bad, but not bad in the sense that always it would be morally wrong to say it. It is bad, but maybe something else is so important that in order to save it or protect it, this can be stopped. Like fire can burn, but maybe there is something to stop burning of fire. Like if someone's life is in danger, and the way to stop the murderer to kill this person is to tell a lie. If there's no other way. Telling lie is bad. We don't say telling lie is good, but we say it's bad just when there is no overriding factor. So he starts explaining this in different ways and examples, but I think this much is enough. Let's just mention some hadiths from Sunni and Shia sources. And then I mention what one of our Marajih has said as a contemporary fiqh view. On page 245, there's a hadith that a lady called Asma bint Yazid, not that Yazid, another, says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, كل الكذب يكتب على ابن آدم إلا رجل كذب بين الرجلين يصلح بينهما. This is in Musnad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Ghazali quotes here. Every lie is written down, is registered for the children of Adam, unless a person tells lie between two people to reconcile. Okay, so this is from our Sunni brothers' sources, but we have also something like this. There are details that maybe can be different. For example, maybe this is registered but will be forgiven, or we can say not forgiven, can be excused. Because if we say it's forgiven, means it is a sin which is forgiven. But if we say it's excuse means it's not a sin because it was not complete cause. Abi Kahil says that there were two companions of the Prophet that they had quarreled, and then as a result their relation was in turmoil. He said, I met one of them and told him, ما لك ولفلان فقد سمعته يحسن الثناء. Why you are bad with that person? I heard him saying good things about you. And then he says, I met the other one and also said, why you are fighting with him. I heard him saying good. Hatta istalaha. As a result, they became again friends. But then he says, I told myself, ahlaktu nafsi wa aslahtu bayna hadain. I destroyed myself and reconciled between them. So he says, I informed the Prophet, and the Prophet said, Ya Abu Kahil, aslih bayna nas. O Abu Kahil, reconcile between people. So by implication, I realized that he endorsed. He didn't say you did wrong, you shouldn't have done this. He still said reconcile between people. Then he gives a kind of measure, a kind of criterion on page 246. He says, lying is something bad. But if by telling truth a problem can arise, then we should weigh, we should measure which one is worse, that problem that telling the truth can cause or the problem in lying. If we know that from perspective of religion, Sharia, that problem that telling the truth can cause is more important than the badness of lying, so we have permission, and sometimes maybe even necessary. If we know that no, that problem is not as bad as if we miss it, like someone is going to lose some money if tells the truth. For example, if I say that this car has this fault, I may lose some money, but this is not as important as avoiding telling lie. So here I should not tell lie. And if I am not sure, of course I have to ask experts, but even still I'm not sure, then I have to avoid it. So I cannot say maybe this is more important. No. The first assumption is it is wrong unless it is proved otherwise. So if you are not sure, you have to stop. You have to go by precaution, by ihtiyat. And if it is something that may harm another person or other people, then here you have to be very careful and you have to check really, because you don't want to tell lie, but if there is a chance that you may harm other people, certainly you need to ask for guidance. Then Ghazali says that also people should be very careful. This is about speakers, teachers, writers, sometimes parents. Sometimes they may say, in order to have good impact on our children or students or audience, maybe we can a little bit tell lies, for example, create some story or hadith or something like this, But he says this is very wrong. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man kadhaba alayya muta'ammidan falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar." If someone tells lies and attributes to me intentionally, should be seated in the fire. There is hadith from Amir al-Mu'minin that he says, if I am dropped from the sky is better than falsely attribute to the Prophet. Okay? So no one should do such thing. We have enough in Quran and Hadith and good things to say. Sometimes people say, yes, but those are repeated. I want to say something new by telling, something. Or sometimes, some people, for making people cry, they may add, something, but this is not permissible. And he says this also would lead to, people being confused, losing their trust. So we have to be very careful. الكذب على رسول الله من الكبائر التي لا يقاومه شيء. To tell a lie about the Prophet, say Prophet said this or did this, is one of those major sins that it's hard to find similar to it. Then there is a discussion about what we call Tawriya. But before I go to the discussion about Tawriya, I want to share with you something from Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi, one of our contemporary Maraja. He has many books, but one of his books is Akhlaq dar Quran, Ethics in the Quran, volume 3. He has a discussion, and he says, according to Islamic hadith and according to the views of the jurists and ethicists, there are some exceptions for telling lies. Of course, every person should follow their marja, but because it's a fiqh issue. But what he says is a kind of common idea that similar to what we had in Mahajjah al-Baydaa. For example, lying for Islah Dhat, reconciliation, or in order to defend against the oppressors and unjust people, or in the case of taqiyya, like Quranic case that Ammar, the son of Yasser, when the pagans ask him, are you a believer or not, and they wanted, because they killed his father and mother, so he didn't say I'm a believer, I'm Muslim, etc. And he was very sad later. But Quran says, إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرَهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ. If someone expresses kufr, but not because he has left religion, it's because he's forced, his heart still has iman, then Quran says this is okay, this is not irtidad or apostasy. Okay, so we have the issue of taqiyya. Taqiyya is when there is a danger, a risk to your life or someone's life, or something which is very important and it is not for everything, it's not for every scenario, but it is a Quranic principle, although some people try to say this is only for the Shia, but this is rooted in the Quran. And it is different from nifaq, because nifaq, hypocrisy, is to pretend to be a believer while you are not. But here this person is a believer, but may need to hide it or speak in a different way. And then he says, any case that someone's life or someone's family honor, dignity may be in danger, and the only way might be to tell lie, this might be permissible. There is one general rule in all these cases, and that is when something more important in the eyes of Sharia is in danger. If you tell the truth, that's in danger. You know, we have a discussion in fiqh and usul al-fiqh. We say tazahum. Have you heard about tazahum? Tazahum is conflict. So sometimes two rulings conflict with each other. For example, someone is drowning in a swimming pool in the next door, and it's not my property. I have no permission to enter, but now I have to choose between two things: to respect property of people, so I don't enter without permission, but also to respect that person's life. So two rulings have conflicted here. Islam doesn't want me to enter into someone's property without permission, but also Islam doesn't want me to let this person die. Here I have to find out al-aham. Which one is more important? Yeah, so we say al-ahamu fal-aham. So you have to always be able to prioritize, not based on your guessing. You have to be sure which is. Here is so obvious that everyone understands that saving life is more important. But there can be cases that it's not that obvious. So you have to seek guidance. So this is called qa'idiyya tazahum. Okay? So here also is a kind of that, although it's not two rulings, this conflict is happening inside one action, and that is telling lie. So we have to see which one is more important. There is a hadith from Amir al-Mu'minin that Rasulullah said, احلف بالله كاذبا ونج أخاك من القتل. This is in Wasa'il al-Shia. If needed, tell a lie, even if it is needed. You may say, I swear by God, but save your brother from being killed. So we don't want to tell lie. We don't, especially to say wallahi. But if this is the way to save an innocent person, okay? In another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is quoted as saying, "Kullu al-kidhb yuktabu ala ibn Adam." The same thing that actually we had in al-Mahajjah al-Baydaa, al-Makarim also quotes from Sunni sources. Every sin is written down, means registered for children of Adam, except someone who tells lie between two people to bring reconciliation. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, "Al-kizbu mazmumun illa fi amrayn." Kizb, lying, is blamed except two cases, as examples, of course. One, daf'u sharr zalama. There are oppressors, tyrants, and they want to harm, to defend against them. And islahu zatul bayn, for reconciliation. So this is to give you an idea about exceptions. Now we go to next discussion about lying, which is the final one, is about what Ghazali called ma'arid, ta'arid. We call it Normalitoria. What does it mean? It means that you say something, the listener takes it in a way that you didn't mean. In order to avoid lying, okay, you say something that, and you know that he would understand it in a different way, and you mean something else, so you have not told lie. Okay? For example, someone says, "Have you seen so and so?" and he wants to go and kill that person or injure that person, and you have seen it. You've seen him. So instead of saying, "I have not seen him," you can go one step, for example, further and say, "Since I have been here, I haven't seen him." Okay? He thinks here means the whole atmosphere, whole place. But you mean here this exact point. Okay? Ghazali says this is also a lie, but sometimes when there is need can be permissible. Some scholars say this is not a lie because definition of lie doesn't apply here. But it is disliked, and especially if you keep using this, then this would become like lying, because then no trust would be remaining, So you have to be very careful. Again, Ayatollah Makaram Shirazi has discussion here about Tawriya. We call it Tawriya. He mentions some examples, and he says, for example, that sometimes they ask someone, "Have you done this?" And maybe he has done it and he regrets, for example, and it's a sin he doesn't want to admit. So he doesn't want to tell the truth, and he says, when they say, "Have you done it?" he says, "Astaghfirullah." So this person gives the impression that I didn't do it, but he didn't tell a lie. Okay? Of course, as I said, this is makruh, and many people say makruh. Some people may not permit, if there is no necessity. Or someone says, "I heard so and so mention bad things about me to you." And if you say yes, it's a problem. If you say no, it's a problem because he has done this. So you say, "How is this possible?" Something like this. So one of the scholars was asked, who is the immediate successor to the Prophet? And he was in a situation that was not able to say, his aqidah. So he said, "Man bintuhu fi baytihi," the one whose daughter is in his house. This could be understood different ways. That the daughter of the Prophet is in his house, or daughter of that person in the house of the Prophet. So, yeah. We have another case also that he doesn't mention, but it is also famous, that one person was asked by Muawiyah to curse Amirul Mu'mineen. I think Muawiyah, one of the caliphs, to curse Amirul Mu'mineen. I think it was Muawiyah. He said to people, "Inna Muawiyah amarani an asubba Aliyya." Muawiyah has asked me to curse Ali. "Ala fal'anu." Beware, curse him. He meant curse Muawiyah. But people got the impression that he's listening to Muawiyah. Yeah, so if he said, curse Muawiyah, or said, "I don't curse Ali," he could get into trouble. So in this way, he tried to be truthful, but also save his life, or avoid problem. You may have heard Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. He was a very cruel person, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. So Sa'id ibn Jubayr was asked by Hajjaj, because he was looking for an excuse to kill him. So he asked him, "How do you see me? What's your opinion about me?" He said, Anta adil. You are adil. Adil in Arabic often means just, but also sometimes means kafir, because it means adala an al-haq, someone who goes away from haq. We can say also adil. Ya'adilun we have in the Quran. So in this way, he said something. He didn't tell a lie, but he also didn't mean that he is just. So he meant something else. So Ayatollah Makarim says that Torah is not telling a lie. Okay? And if there is a case that one has to tell lie, it's better, or maybe it's necessary, to first try Torah. But sometimes maybe that person keeps asking till then one may need to tell a lie, for example. He says some ulama also have said that maybe sometimes in the Quran we have, in the case of prophets, things that they can be also maybe Torah. For example, in the case of brothers of Yusuf, when the agents of Yusuf found that the measure, they said ennakum lasariqun. Yeah, they said you are the thieves, you have stolen this. But they had not stolen this. So they said, there are different ways to explain it, but they said they meant you stole Yusuf from his father. But they understood perhaps that you stole this from us. Yeah? So, and also maybe Yusuf knew, but they didn't know. Maybe Yusuf said, go and find this, and they thought they have stolen. But this is also one way of saying this. Or when they asked Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam about who has destroyed the idols, he said, "Bal fa'alahu kabiruhum hadha fas'aluhum in kanu yantaqun." So one way of interpreting this, he said, the biggest one has destroyed. Ask them if they speak. So it means that if they speak, the bigger one has done it. Okay? Although someone may say, perhaps he just said in order to make them, rethink. But this is also one way to say that he didn't say, because they are very careful about what they say. One of my teachers, rahmatullah alayhi, said there was an alim who was never, beating his children, even for tarbiyah, discipline. And also, because he didn't want to tell lie, he was not even threatening to say that I will beat you, because he's not going. So, for example, if you don't behave well, I'm going to beat you. But he thought this is lie. So he was saying in Farsi, Farz kun, miyam mizanam. The child doesn't understand. Farz kun means assume. But the child doesn't know Farz kun. So he was saying, assume I come and beat you. So, because they are very careful, so they try to say something that there is a way to say it in a truthful way, not to tell a lie. Okay, so the discussion about lying finishes. I only mention one point that Ghazali says in this part. He says also we have to be careful about some of the exaggerations. Ghazali says it's not a sin, but we have to be careful. Again, everyone should check with their matter. He says, sometimes we say, I told you this 100 times. I called you or messaged you 100 times, you didn't reply. But if you count, it's maybe 4 or 5. It's not 100. So he says this is also a lie, but maybe is not considered as a sin, as haram. And also, he says we have to be careful about when people, for example, offer us something. For example, someone says, have you eaten? And you don't want to eat, for example, said, yes, I have eaten. This is not also right. It's a simple, but we have to be careful. So you can find a way to be truthful if you don't want to eat, but it's not something that, we have permission to tell lie about this, So this is some point that he mentioned. Or also we have to be very careful when, for example, people ask us something and we say something, then we say, God is my witness. This is very, very bad. Because not only you are lying, but you are also, lying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and involving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is very bad. But Allah knows that this is the... So, alhamdulillah, this discussion finished. The next defect, inshallah, we discuss it next week, is about ghiba, backbiting. It's the 15th defect. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin.